Welcome to the 60 Plus Best Life podcast. We know that being in your 60s doesn't mean being over the hill anymore, and that, in fact, for many of us, the 60s feel more like a time of bright new beginnings, but with the added benefit of decades of wisdom and perspective. We also know that being in this time of life poses many questions and anxieties. We're happy to bring you conversations with those who have taken actions to create or enhance their lives to experience as much vitality, accomplishment, and purpose as possible by embracing change and the challenges in front of them. You'll also learn from health and wellness professionals, creators, and visionaries who are making life at 60 plus the best time of life. Join me, Daisy Swan, and Kimberly Fowler as we explore this life stage rich with possibility, depth, and new beginnings. By liking, subscribing, and forwarding this podcast, you'll be increasing the awareness that indeed the 60s and beyond hold so much more opportunity for enhanced health, personal growth, income, adventure, and satisfaction as well. Let's change those outdated perceptions that being in your 60s spells old age for good. We are really excited to have Sharon Cox on with us today. So let me give a quick intro. Sharon is a financial professional for over 30 years, and she's the founder of The Money Dance. She is known for encouraging women to lead confident, meaningful money lives through her work as a money coach. So she facilitates women and money circles. She's an interactive workshop presenter and a professional speaker. She's a charming, wonderful person to have on our show. She consistently advocated for women as a financial planner, socially responsible investment advisor, small business consultant, and national conference manager. She's an award-winning speaker and author of materials published by the National Endowment for Financial Education. So we're thrilled to have you here so that we can talk about living your best life in your 60s, and particularly for women to understand how to navigate the tricky waters of understanding your financial and emotional, relationship.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the emotional relationship to money, we know, is oftentimes fraught with all sorts of things. So let's jump in. Sharon, tell us a little bit about what women, particularly in their 60s, need to be thinking about regarding money. That's a big, broad.
Beautiful. And we just have an hour or a couple of days, or
Oh, we'll just keep going.
Okay, we will just go on forever. Well, I tell you, in addressing this conversation with the two of you and your listeners, you both gave me a good frame for answering that question, which was, how is it that women 60 plus, and let's face it, all women, to be at ease,
yes,
with their financial lives?
Right.
And I really like that. So I have some ideas about how to check in about how much ease am I experiencing? So I have some ideas.
Great.
To share. So we could start with taking an inventory. And that inventory of, because, you've been managing your finances 60 plus for a lot of years. So money is not a new topic to you. Hello.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, because you have had habits throughout your lifetimes thus far, or to go. So what are the ones that have really served you? And it's good, jot those down, make the list as long as you can. And then while you're thinking of that, most likely there's going to be something come up to say, Well, that is something that I did not do, or is that something that I did with information that sort of put me on a path that wasn't so good? So note those habits or those decisions as well. And these are the important ones, because that's where you say, okay, going forward, I'm going to do something that maybe you hadn't done in the past. I'm going to be talking a lot today, reminding and encouraging people, and especially over 60, to get their estate plan in place. And just saying that sort of puts some scary things happening. Now, let me go back to doing this assessment about your habits. Good things in the past, things that maybe not maybe that you know that you want to pay attention to going forward. So that's the assessment.
So can I clarify for a second?
Yeah, please.
So when you're talking about this assessment, we should be writing down the things that we've done that we know have worked for us financially. Yeah. And we should also write down the things that we know have not worked for us.
You got it.
Okay. Two lists.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And that's sort of your ideas for going forward.
Right.
And the next thing is to do a checking on your money self-talk, especially on the part of that list that you've written down about, why didn't I do that 10 years ago or whatever. So having your self-talk, and Daisy, you mentioned earlier about the emotional aspect, and when we're dealing with our money, this is where, because it's not going to do you any good today or tomorrow to beat yourself up about things that you didn't do or why didn't I, or all of that. So sweeping that away is probably one of the best gifts you can do for yourself. Yeah. And then thirdly, with assessing your money life, is to just be confident and at ease with your daily dealing with money. So that means you have so much automated. You have your bill pay automated. But before you do automated bill pay, make sure you do automated savings. So that is the daily piece. So once those are in place, it's like, yeah, I know where things are going. If you're using that credit card, make sure that you can pay all of it off the next month with the next statement. So it's like you're at ease with that. And in those special times, then you have your set aside emergency fund to take care of those big purchases. Great. Or go straight to using your debit card instead of a credit card. That keeps you really honest. So you don't have that 30-day gap. Right. So I think those are some really good basic ways of just bringing ease, and that is to your daily life. Now we need to make sure that there's midterm, because we live daily, but then sort of what's going to happen in every 6 months when you, whatever, maybe you pay your well, of course, your taxes, if you have those quarterly, all of those things. So making sure that you're looking a little bit ahead. The whole idea of this to have no surprises.
Right. So the quarterly taxes too.
Yes.
The property taxes.
Right. And anything that is not just monthly, because you're going to track your monthly stuff. And now we're going to go to the long term, and that's where we're going to talk a little bit more about estate planning. I would hope that anyone, especially women over 60, I don't want you to sleep too many more nights without having your estate planning documents in place. And no, it's not just if you have a huge trust. And so, and I'm pretty sure Daisy and Kimberly are going to put in the show notes. If you don't have that yet, start looking for an attorney, or here's something you can do that's free by getting the California Advanced Health Directive right online, 7 pages. Do it, and I think that can help you sleep a bit better. And it'll take some time to do that, because you have to think about deep, big questions. So those are all the ways you get those things lined up, and it's like, I'm really at ease with where I am, who I am. Yeah.
And just so that we can repeat that again, the California Advanced Health Directive.
That's it.
Google it, and we're going to have this information also in the show notes.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Print that. It's 7 pages. Not so scary.
Right.
Do it. And that can get you geared up to say, okay, now I'm brave enough to start looking around for an attorney to do, because it's a pretty long-term process. It's a wonderful gift, not just for you, but for everybody you love. If you've ever had any kind of situation where there has been a passing of a family member or someone who did not have things in place.
Yeah.
Well,
I just know what that's like.
Yeah, I just had that recently.
You did?
My oldest friends, and had a restaurant, and nothing in place.
Right.
It's just awful.
And something happened.
Yes, he committed suicide. Yeah. So, and it was just his family, not only dealing with that, his family and friends dealing with that, but then he had nothing in place.
Yeah. That is a double tragedy.
Yeah. Wow. Ouch.
Yes. And that's dramatic, but that's this is something you want to do during these podcasts, right? Have enough of a whatever scary thing or whatever else to say.
Right.
I'm not going to do that to the people I love.
Right. Yeah. No, we've in family, we've lived through some of that, and it creates chaos. Yeah.
Yeah. At the worst time.
Yeah. Exactly.
Worst time. Yeah.
So these are the basic steps that we should be taking just to feel like we're in control of at least whatever it is we know we can be in control of. And of course, a lot of listeners will be in relationship, and so they've got someone else to be doing this with, presumably. Or are we thinking about women being independent regardless in relationship or not?
Yes. The answer is yes, and yes.
Yes. Okay.
So in relationship, partner, spouse, whatever that is, money use is a little more difficult. It's more complicated because you have your own money stuff, and here's your partner, and then there's the togetherness. So in some ways, it's easier if you are fully in charge of your own money life, whatever else. We're going to talking about money as well. We're going to do that next. So all of those assessments, what I envision is if you have a partner, you're both sitting down together and you're doing your own inventories, your own self-talk, and then checking how you're doing as a couple. Separately and together,
right.
Well, that goes on to like communication, between that's something that's communication between a couple, or whether you're married or dating. That's an issue I've always had. I can talk about just about anything but money for some reason. I don't know why.
Kimberly, would you like to know the reasons?
Yes.
Why it's easy for you to talk about all those things instead of money?
Absolutely.
And guess what? You're not the only one. I think this is just, and with the work that I've done all these years, look at the research, but just anecdotal work that I worked with women. And what I've come up with is there are about 3 things. And one is your personal narrative. So Kimberly and Daisy and everyone listening, each of us has our own narrative, their own story about the messages we received when we were kids and in that primary family. And that narrative has built up until earlier today. We're always getting information about that narrative that we're supporting it, feels comfortable. It's like, no. I know that's my past, but I want to have a different sort of set of thoughts about about the way I deal and talk with money. So there's that one, and then there are cultural norms. Now, I have a feeling there are going to be a lot of women listening to these podcasts, so the guys just sort of put up with this. We are not trained. Our information often is twisted a little bit for female children. You won't want to hear this, but I'm going to say it anyway. The research shows that parents talk to their boy children more than about money than they do their girl children. And that still is going on. It's just like, wait a minute, haven't we left that behind? No. So culturally, and just being female in this society has its own considerations.
Yeah, and so, I just want to jump in and say, Kimberly and I had dinner with my adult son, and we were explaining to him that,
yes,
right, Kimberly?
Yeah, it was a very interesting conversation. Daisy's son is amazing. I love him.
Thank you. On behalf of him. No, that because he found it really hard to believe, like, why wouldn't, women of all ages be able to talk about money just as much as, and be as savvy about money as he can.
Absolutely.
That we all have the same resources, and we enlightened him, I think.
Oh, that's great. I love these two examples you've both given about talking to younger people, because this is why we have experience and things that we know now that we wish maybe had put into action 30 years ago. So I love that. And that's a part of, and Kimberly, there you go. You had that conversation with Daisy's son. So it's just the practice too of bringing this up.
I had a practice. Well, one, like when you're talking about, generational, I remember when my grandmother passed away and she had no idea anything about money, like if they had bank accounts, where the mortgage was, what, like zero. And I was a lawyer at the time and came in, and it was like, it was interesting. There's just no, they didn't have any idea.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wish that weren't still happening. But
it does.
Some women in couples, for some, if they've been in especially long-term marriage, maybe they weren't interested in money. Why would they be in say investing and all that? So the spouse got the financial advisor and didn't bother to take her along, and she didn't want to go along to the annual meetings. However that played out. So you asked earlier about in relationship or singledom, even if you're connected financially and whatever else with a partner, you got to know what's going on, financially.
Right. So that's where the bravery comes in again, to buck that trend of silence or passivity, or just blinders, denial. I'm sure everything.
Well, that's sort of shaking the finger at yourself. But let's just say that, of course, why not? Why would it be easy for us to talk about money? Because of our personal narrative, because of the cultural norm. And then the other thing is that there's an institutional press for us really not to talk or deal with money that much. So if you do go out, decide to get a financial planner, it's like, I'm going to get this figured out and get some professional help. 8 out of 10 times that planner is going to be, or a financial advisor is going to be male. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. There are marvelous male, planners and advisors out there. But again, that's something else that may keep a lot of women from stepping in there and building that financial team and, getting the information that they need.
Right.
So those are the reasons, Kimberly, that you find it difficult to talk about money. And I would have had a career if everyone had that one figured out.
Well, Well, Sharon, I saw on your website you had a 30-minute free consultation. And when I saw that on your website, themoneydance.com, I was like, oh, I'm going to sign up for that.
Well, I'm looking forward to that 30 minutes, and I'm not doing much coaching these days, very selectively. But I promise you in that 30 minutes, I can at least give you something, some steps, next steps to take.
Wow.
Yeah. And part of it, that stepping up, is just doing those consultations. You'll see them online. A lot of people will offer 30 minutes. Well, why not do that? Why not see if you can learn from someone else and what they, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I look forward to that.
It's interesting when I went through my divorce a long time ago, from my son's dad, I met with a financial planner, and that was the first time I had done that on my own. And it made all the difference for me, really going through the process of divorce was such an eye opener to look at expenses, to look at my goals. And so there's that silver lining, maybe, just to becoming more empowered financially. But, having my own business for so long, I, have had to look at my P&L statement all the time. And, so that's such an education.
And if I could also, we don't want to wait until a divorce or something sort of forces into that situation. But I'm so glad that was the impetus, and it did have a good outcome. That's
I think it's like turning on the light. We know so many things. People are helped when they get to shine the light on the scary stuff, right? And we know that shame lives in the dark, secrets, things like that. They're not good for us. So being able to, that's why we're having this conversation, right? To make life better. So you work with people more on the emotional component of their relationship to money. Yeah.
Well, that's always a part of my work as a coach, but I don't do it upfront and immediate, because I always begin with a very pragmatic. Do you know how much money you're spending every month? And do you know what your income, those kind of things? Because as we do set up the systems for tracking money, for seeing if you have credit card issues or all of that, the emotional stuff, it just comes in. It just comes in, because now here are the things that, I never used to do that, but I feel terrible about my credit card, whatever that is. The emotional comes in rather than beginning with, well, what is your relationship to money? That's so through pragmatic attention to your money life, all of the emotional stories, the things that are the obstacles and all of that do come in. But I wouldn't have been doing coaching all this time if it hadn't been for the emotional part, because we're not just talking about numbers.
Right.
It's what they mean. Yeah. For your present and for your future.
Right.
Yeah. It's a vulnerable place, right?
Yeah.
Kimberly's squirming there. I can see that.
I am. We talked about it with dating. Talking about money is just so challenging for me and for a lot of women. And it's like, how do you communicate that without sounding weird or see, I'm already like, it's for me putting that out there, it's weird. It's like, so it's like, I can talk about sex to someone, but to talk about money, it's like, oof, so
I'm so glad you feel that vulnerability and you're willing to say it, on a podcast. That's exactly what we need to do. Exactly. So thank you, Kimberly, for showing up and saying that. And I haven't checked recently, but the what I was so surprised by was that like 40% of couples before they're married, now that's sort of some step from dating, didn't even talk about money and finance. How's that for a disaster waiting for to happen? But you got to practice while you're dating. I mean, it can happen with the first coffee date or whatever, or maybe dinner. Who's tab? All that. There are many opportunities to step into that. So we all need to get brave on that.
Well, so what are some strategies for people to have those?
I have to think back to my dating times. Let me think about that.
Well, how
about this for just straightforward? I'm going to do role playing now. So let's say you've decided to go out to dinner. The first coffee date wasn't a deal, but you're out to dinner or whatever else. And you can actually say, this issue of who pays for what and all that, this is such a complicated issue. I don't think anybody has it figured out. What do you think?
Ooh. Wow. First dinner date? Really? Wow. Okay.
So, no, let's wait, shall we, for the next one? Oh, no. Let's wait until we decide this is a serious relationship. Wait a minute. I don't want to ruffle the waters now. This is the guy or the gal, Right.
No. I see.
Try it out in some form of that. The more that we can say, this is uncomfortable and this is, I mean, look how that was supportive for talking to Daisy's son last night.
Yeah.
It's only because you think it's going to scare them off. If they're scared off by a conversation about finance, something as simple as how are we going to deal with the check, maybe this is not the guy that you think is going to be the best thing since sliced bread. I'm not sure that's the right metaphor. Yeah, you can make up your own.
Right. That's. Well, you have strategies that you work with clients about getting ready for uncomfortable conversations. Yeah.
Part of it is we initially talked about ease, about doing your own work in being as much at ease with your own financial life as you can. So that is really, but we don't necessarily, you don't have to wait until you become at ease and have control and you're confident about your management of money and all that. It helps. Because then you can speak from a place of, I've done the work.
Right.
And that is also a good way to begin a conversation with saying, I'm just going to use for an example, talking to a friend, I am working with an attorney to get my, let's say, I need to go into more definition of that, but sharing people that you are working on your advanced health directive, like, well, what is that? So something that you're doing is a wonderful way to share with someone else. This is, so there's no, because of all the impediments and obstacles, talking freely about money. The strategies are just, do it anyway kind of thing. But the most that you don't have to have everything figured out, but the strategies are just like you would talk about anything a little bit uncomfortable. But if you have a why, if you know.
Did you say if you have a why?
A why, W-H-Y. If you know why you want to have this conversation.
Right.
I suggest that clients or anyone just make a list of people you need to talk to about money. It could be a parent, if you have elderly parents, I hope you have had the difficult conversation of asking if they have their advanced health directive in place. They probably do, because you're probably listed as the person to be contacted.
Yeah.
Is their will, in place?
Right.
So that's a difficult conversation. But why would you want to do that? Because it's going to be on you if none of that is done, or your siblings, or whatever else. So having the WHY, is really important. There are many important reasons for having those difficult conversations. And I want to just mention, I was watching your other podcasts, and Amy Grant was talking about, and this is relationship. Relationship. Oh, thank you. Say it again.
Anne Grant, the divorce.
Okay. Yes, I was close.
Yeah.
I remember the Grant.
Yeah.
She said she was talking about the most prominent, the most frequent reason for divorces.
Yeah.
What she calls financial infidelity, which I thought was, I wasn't used to that term, so I thank her for that. I will use that in the future. But that mismatch, those are cross purposes. So another really good reason in relationships, no matter how new and how young, to have that conversation. So I'm not sure that those were sort of clear strategies, but just do it, making the list, deciding why it's important with each of these people to have a conversation with. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm reflecting back years ago. You and I did a program together on mindful money conversations.
Yes.
Because we recognized how uncomfortable and even anxiety provoking these conversations. We're not just talking about, go out there and have a conversation. I mean, people get super stressed out about this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's why they put it off so much, right?
Right. And I don't mean to be flippant by saying just go do it. But it's never going to be easy. It can't be easy because of all the reasons that we've talked about.
Yeah. So
there's really practice.
There is really that preparation that you can take with yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Like just calm, doing whatever you can do to calm yourself, to ground yourself, deep breaths, doing a standing meditation. I love, just really feeling your feet and letting gravity hold you and getting really settled in yourself. And you're going to feel that, it's kind of like public speaking. If you're somebody who gets unnerved by that, right. But, because your heart starts pounding when you're going to be going towards something that's so scary, like a conversation that's so real. Right. Does that resonate for you, Kimberly?
Yeah, I'm still thinking of going in my head, like at a date and like discussing money. It's just absolutely never happened. So I'm still trying to figure that part out. I don't meditating. I don't know.
Not sure that could happen. No, I mean, and it might not be on a date when you're, it might be. Yeah. But it might be in a conversation some other time with somebody who you feel like you can start to broach that conversation with.
Well, we were talking before we started to record. I was talking to, I'd gone out to the Honor Bar with my neighbor and his daughter, who was she's in college. And I talked to her about this podcast and that we were doing this. And I said, for me, we're living so much longer. I'll be 65 in July. And it's like, the thought of saving money, it's like, and retiring and, like we may live to be 90, 100 years old, and then that sort of screws with the calculation of your savings. And that's what I was telling her, to like think about that at 20 something.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's a whole other ball game too, because I'm in the wellness industry. So it's like longevity. And then I always, and I always get fearful of like, wow, how are we going to pay for this? That's the first thing that pops up. It's not like, wow, fantastic, I'm going to be living to 100. It's like, how am I going to pay for this? How is everybody going to pay for this?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And thanks, Daisy, too, for mentioning the sort of taking the breath. And when you did that, of course, you put your hand right on your heart, because this is, I know, an important part of your practice.
Yeah.
So it is that way of honoring yourself and the person that you're going to be speaking to. And
and you talk about being more compassionate, right? Like, so you're not flogging yourself with all of the mistakes you've made, but like really encouraging yourself that this is going to be a useful, valuable thing for yourself. And in that way, being kind, being a friend to yourself, right? Like there's a reason you're doing this, so you can take care of yourself.
Yes. And to even push that a little farther, to be a friend to money as well.
Say more about
that. Well, because we're scared of that, especially if there's fear of deprivation, of there's not enough, and all of that. And that again is another message, because of our culture and our society is so much is related. Well, I can only be happy if I have enough money. So one of my mantras is, the idea is to take care of the money you have, and then that can build your confidence and build more of a trust for what is next. Because it's the next is always going to be there. So that friendliness is very, very important. Money can be your friend. It doesn't have to be evil, doesn't have to be the scary thing and whatever else. It's there. It's a tool. It's a resource. I mean, you teach, Kimberly, how people physically and whatever else to have those resources that they have within their bodies and their flexibility. And Daisy does it in her way as well, with the resources that people have with their experience and their work. And I think the last thing I want to say about that is that because you're encouraging your listeners to make changes and sort of be, sort of what's next, I often think of this, one phrase is called the third stage of life. So in this third stage, well, it's not going to happen without money entering into that. What's next? So I like to think of the word of entanglement, because money is always entangled in our presence and in our future as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, certainly in the work that I do, as a career coach, there are a lot of people who want to make a change as they're coming into this time of life. And, some of the people that come to me are realizing, wow, I don't have to work anymore. I've done what I've needed to do, and my financial planner says, and then they're coming into, well, I don't know how I feel about not making money. They're like, that's a big shock to people who are used to always having that achievement connected to money. And so we're looking at other ways that they can find that sense of satisfaction and achievement and get comfortable with themselves not being an earner. And then there's the other people who really have to look at their savings. They want to make a change, and they need to be able to see, how am I going to be able to afford what I know I need to do for myself to take my foot off the pedal a little, or change, that maybe what they're doing just doesn't authentically fit them anymore. And, some people that I've worked with have decided they're going to leave Los Angeles. They're not going to live in such an expensive place anymore. Make real lifestyle decisions so that they can have more of what they want. But we have to look at the money. We have to figure it out.
Yes.
But there a lot of my clients make that decision. Like, I'm going to be willing to step away from such a high income so I can have more of the things that reflect my values. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the values, to this whole conversation, and I'm sure you would agree with me, Sharon, your values, your why, right? Your values are so central to this whole conversation.
Yes, and somehow along the way, money gets sort of pulled away from the values part of our lives, because we can speak about having a meaningful life and what that means in relationships and in our careers, the work, our families, and all of that. And that's very clear. It's very obvious what our values are when we speak of those very heartfelt and intimate kinds of aspects of the way we live our lives and who we connect with. But money seems to be over here in some other category, but it's very connected. I mean, at one time, one financial professional said, "Oh, you want to know what your values are? Give me your checkbook." Of course, we don't do checkbooks anymore, but show me your credit card statement. Show me your bank statement. I'll tell you what your values are.
Yeah. Mm. Your calendar and your checkbook, right?
There you go.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a great reflection. Those are great reflections. Yeah.
Could I make another couple of, I'd like to make an offer, but, and my offer is that one way that we're just opening this up, my colleague and I've always been solo with the money dance, but now I have a partnership. We call ourselves Mexico City meets the Midwest. I'm the Midwest. And there's 50 years of difference in our ages. So that's a bit of a piece as well. So we're going to have women money circles here at probably my house, unless someone wants to host and invite their friends. And this is an opportunity to have a circle of women, a safe, inspiring place to talk about money. And you don't need to have a women in money circle. You can have your own 3 people at dinner, right, to have the same thing. But money silence is not our friend.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably have missed a lot of opportunities in your life, in your career, where you didn't ask for a raise, or when you had an offer, you didn't, you accepted it right away. Oh, good. Here's the first thing out. Negotiation. I'll just do a quick piece that I think is so essential when it comes to negotiating. If anyone, even though over 60, sure, why not? With your new thoughts and ideas, is that these guys, again, because they've been acculturated to ask for what they want. This is generalization, but you get it. When they go in for an interview or whatever else, they don't ask for what they want.
Yeah.
Will they take the first offer? Probably not, if they have any kind of savvy. So the research was, how can we get women to negotiate like men? Sorry to put that blankly, but there you go.
Yeah.
They found the way. And here it is.
Oh, good.
All listening?
I'm listening.
They asked women to negotiate for their friend. They went in and they did exactly the same thing that the guys did. Because you know that your best friend has these qualities, has these whatever. So
that's brilliant. Yeah.
Great.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. so much of that is, yeah.
Mhm.
There you go. Again, there's the friendly part. We can be that friendly to ourselves.
Yeah.
Off we go.
Yeah.
Right.
Change the
Off we go.
game.
And Sharon, can you talk a little bit more about the women and money
The circles.
I saw that
Yes.
on your website.
Yeah, I've
Yeah, the
done
circles.
these for years, and now that I have this beautiful young partner, she loves this idea because I just met her when I moved here to Santa Barbara. So it is usually this may shift because I'm really becoming the mentor now. I now tell you what a delicious role that is. I will just tell you, you have that to look forward to. You don't have to wait until you're over 80 to do that, but it is just delicious to be a mentor. And I'm sure both of you do that in your own way.
Yeah.
Even though you're both actively very successful businesswomen.
Yeah.
I'm sure you are doing that. But the basic format is that usually it's a couple of hours. The ideal group is about 8 to 10 women. It's wonderful if you know each other. Not always, but there you go. And basically, we talk about why it's hard to talk about money. Many of the things that we talk today in this podcast, we speak to that, but it basically is, and each person chooses something that they've been putting off in their financial life. Just a task, whatever that is. And then we share resources about that to be supportive of other women, but it's mainly to just talk about money. And we do, yeah. And instead of saying how hard it is, we just do it. And I will tell you the first question I always ask when people say, hi, I'm Sally Joe. And I say, and I'm asking everyone, tell me something that really works in your money life. Like I was talking about the taking inventory, something that serves you well. Everyone's eyes goes like this. We're so used to talking about, oh, no. I want to talk about the mistake I made. What gives me a headache now? All of that. So that's one of the first things. And when we just end up with a very supportive, open, and I believe that women leave a Women in Money circle saying, I can talk to somebody else about this. And I even have in mind the person I want to talk to.
So is it like a ongoing kind of accountability group as well? Or is it just that?
Probably not that anymore. It's very different. Boy, I used to call all the shots. I used to do the design and say how I was going to do it. But that's since I'm not doing coaching now, except in very, very special instances.
Yeah.
No, it's probably going to be a one-timer, but who knows?
Right.
In the past, groups have said, oh my gosh, we have to get together again. So we decide when that is. 2 months down the line, and everyone leaves with something that they are committed to doing. It's all about taking action. Hello.
Yeah, that is.
I love podcasts, but unless you're going to do something with this,
right,
wasted hour. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Well, you've given us some action items to do.
Our homework.
You have me thinking.
Good. And take advantage of that 30 minutes. I hope I hope my calendar fills up with people because there's no hard sell here. Again, I don't have
it's
but it's just my work.
And what I love that you're inspiring me to do is to have conversations with friends about, is this scary for you, or what do you do? How do you have these conversations? Yes. And I have had some of these conversations with some of my friends who, are also single and trying to navigate relationships. And, but also, friends of mine who are married and, they're, we're older and there are issues that come up and like, how do you deal with this?
Absolutely.
It's just so comforting to know you can have that openness with people who care about you and you care about.
Right.
Right.
Yes, that's a great place to start, Daisy. Exactly. You've already done that in some instances. So just keep that up, and go deeper.
Great. Well, so you mentioned some resources, and we are going to put them in our show notes.
Well, I haven't mentioned them yet, but I'm about to, because I told you I would mention them.
Yes.
Well, the California Advanced Health Directive, just key that in, and
Right.
that will come up. But I do want to give, since we talked about this, assessing your financial habits and things you need to have lined up.
Yeah.
Just a couple of general resources that I like to recommend. One is Nerd Wallet, and again, it's going to show up. Another is The Balance. I think it's called The Balance Money, and Bankrate. Those are just three resources that, if you think, well, okay, I should figure out how much I'm spending every month. So those are some resources where you can see formats, encouragement, and whatever else. Just because I'm giving you just a couple, because you can get overwhelmed going online.
Yeah.
I mean, there are thousands. So you don't need the big fancy ones, just some good basic ones. Not to
And those are things that can help you know what your money situation is.
Yes, right, exactly. Just basics. And I just hope that everyone builds a financial team. So you probably have an accountant, or you have someone to do your taxes, or if you're doing your own taxes, hooray for you.
Yeah.
And hopefully you have an attorney, and for the estate planning, whatever else, and a financial advisor, planner, a coach, whatever. You need those people. We need those people.
Yeah. Good team.
And you and I, for those listeners who may be in long-term marriages or relationships where your spouse is doing the main work around investing and whatever else, and you're not as familiar with that part. Another statistic is, if that spouse dies and that person is left not knowing, and one example was Kimberly's grandmother, is that the financial advisor, investment advisor may have been male.
Mm-hmm.
So she will be in that relationship and think, well, this is someone I can talk to, or, who is this person? So in financial team, remember, you should be in charge. If you are really in charge, you get to decide who you want to do your taxes, and someone that you can communicate with, talking about that.
Yeah.
As well. So with your advisors, however they show up, make sure it's someone you can connect to. It should be like Daisy, right? Is this someone you can talk tough with and come up against, difficult issues? Same thing with your financial people. You need to trust them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. That's fantastic.
Well, I know, and we're going to hop off here in a sec, but I wanted to just tie in, Kimberly, you were at the helm of a major company, and probably dealing with a lot of financial responsibility, right?
What, when I had my last company?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But one of the things that I really didn't have a great financial team around me, and when I would do speaking engagements for women entrepreneurs, and they would always ask me, well, what was one thing that you would have done differently? And I said, I would have known my numbers better. It's just, it has not only been for me personally, but then it also affected my business, and I really, I didn't have that team. I didn't have the people around me that I really needed. So,
that's one of the things I think we've, in our conversations, Kimberly and mine, offline, so to speak, we've talked a lot about how, as developing business or just growing up, you learn as you get older, women are so independently minded in a certain regard, like I shouldn't need anyone else. I shouldn't need anybody to help me.
Need help, right?
I shouldn't need. And I know men have a very hard time asking for help. And women have, as much as we have great friends, that's what we're known for, right? Having our circle of friends.
Right.
But asking for help and having that expectation, even as a business owner or an executive, it's so essential that we think about how to, again, be friendly towards ourselves and surround ourselves with the people who can help us be better at how we do what we do, ultimately.
Yeah.
I just so appreciate you talking about that, Kimberly, because I think people can look at you or us and go, oh, you knew exactly what we're doing all along.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, that's why it's so valuable. Thank both of you for being just forthright about that. And if you're going to do a podcast, I mean, this is what it's about, right?
Right.
Not just the easy stuff.
No. Yeah.
So well done, both of you.
Oh, thanks.
Well, Sharon, I mean, thank you so much for coming on, our podcast. I mean, I think you're going to help a lot of people. I mean, us included. So
thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll be in touch.
Thanks for listening to the 60 Plus Best Life podcast. We hope you've learned useful and inspiring information today. We welcome your comments and also your suggestions of topics we need to discuss. If you know of someone you'd like to hear on our podcast, please share. We think of this podcast as a way to grow a robust community of people who are making life better at 60 plus. People who are living their best life. Thanks again for listening to, subscribing, and sharing the 60 Plus Best Life podcast.